Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Fatihah binti Abdul Zamri and my matrix number is 209011.
My name is Ainur Fariha binti Sabaruddin. My matric number is 209057.
Hi, my name is Kavita. My matric number is 209029.
My name is Nur Atifah binti Zulkifli and my matrix number is 209044.
Hi, my name is Izzer Ernst, matrix number 209018.
Rice is an edible starchy cereal grain. Within the worldwide cultivated cereal, rice, which is Oryza sativa, stands out, constituting the basic food for the large number of human beings. In Malaysia, rice is cooked by boiling. It's eaten alone in a great variety of soups, side dishes, and main dishes such as nasi lemak. Figures show the mechanical structure of a rice grain. Each grain of rice is enclosed in a tough outer hull that needs to be removed before it can be consumed. Bran is under the hull and usually tan-colored, but it may be depending on the pigmentation in the bran layers. The bran layer may be consumed, but it often removed when further processing rice. Once the bran and germ layer are removed, what rice remains? It is known as endosperm. This is a part of rice that is most commonly consumed. Germ is full of B vitamins, minerals, and proteins. It helps give rice its color and added nutritional benefits. There are many types of rice grains such as white rice and brown rice. This is a white rice grain.
The first mechanical properties of rice grain is hardness. Hardness is a measure of material's resistance to deformation by surface indentation. The plastic deformation is caused by the motion of dislocations in the atomic structure of a material. Besides, hardness is also defined as the resistance of a material to permanent deformation during application of load. There are four most common indentation hardness tests, which are the Rockwell hardness test, the Vickers hardness test, the Knoop hardness test, and lastly the Brinell hardness test. How to measure the hardness of rice grain? We can do the rice hardness test to measure stickiness of the rice grain in a container using a disc probe. To get more information about rice hardness test, let's watch the video together. The hardness of a material is the most important parameter when designing contacts. The harder material wears down the softer when in contact with each other. Is compressive strength. Compressive strength is defined as the maximum compressive load a body can bear prior to failure, divided by its cross-sectional area. Rice grain resistance to the compression can be called as the compressive strength. How to determine the forces needed to break the grains? We can do the static compression test. Let's proceed to the other mechanical properties of rice grains, which is creep behavior. What is creep behavior? It is the tendency of a solid material to move slowly or deform permanently under the influence of persistent mechanical stresses. It is also a time-dependent deformation under a certain applied load. There are three characteristics of creep, which are usually affected by changing conditions of loading and temperature. Second, creep mechanism is often different between different materials. And lastly, the number of possible stress temperature time combinations is infinite. There are three creep stages, which are primary creep, secondary creep, and tertiary creep. The rate of deformation is called the creep rate. Creep process of rice grains consisted mainly of retarded elastic deformation and viscosity flow deformation.
Next is brittleness. Brittleness is a tendency of a material to fracture, crumble, crack, shatter, or fail upon the application of a relatively small amount of force or impact. It is usually displayed by a product of high degree of hardness and low degree of cohesiveness. When rice grain is subjected to stress, it fractures with little elastic deformation and without significant plastic deformation. Rice grain absorb relatively little energy prior to fracture, even those of high strength.
Compressive test. Compressive test is used to determine the measurement of the tensile strength of rice grains. Fracture resistance of paddy grains was measured in terms of average grain rupture forces and energy absorbed under quasi-static compressive loading conditions. There are three steps under the compressive test. Step 1 is grain size measurement to determine length, width and height of the rice grain. Step 2 is determination of volume to find volume from size, volume from volumetric mass density, and correction coefficient of the grain volume. Next is static compression test. For the static compression test, we use the graph force versus stretch. By referring this graph, we can find the minimal crushing force, maximal crushing force, maximal compressive stress, and work for the first rupture.
Creep test is used to determine the amount of deformation that the rice grain experiences over time. This test is conducted by using the continuous compressive fluid on the rice grain. Creep is divided into three stages: primary creep, secondary creep, and tertiary creep. Primary creep starts at a rapid rate and decreases with time, while secondary creep relatively has uniform rate, and tertiary creep has an accelerated creep where increases with time. As for the creep testing, when the rice grain was applied with a constant force and at a constant temperature, the rice grain eventually could not last long with the test and will be destroyed, and it will be known as creep failure, which ends with rupture. The brittleness test is used to determine the lowest temperature at which materials do not exhibit brittle failure. Now, as we can see in the graph, we can see the graph stress versus strain graph, brittle, ductile, and plastic. Actually, the rice grain is considered brittle until certain level of low temperature, which will be then break off at one point of high temperature.
So about the equipment needed to conduct the measurements, the first equipment is called vernier calipers. Vernier calipers is used to measure the width, height, and length of the rice grain in order to calculate the volume of the rice grain. The second equipment is statistical analysis tool, which is Microsoft Excel. We use Microsoft Excel to calculate and analyze the data gained from the measurements. The third equipment needed is called creep testing machine. This machine is used to test the creep behavior of the rice grain. After that, another equipment needed in measurement is brittleness temperature tester. This tester is actually used to test the brittleness of the rice grain, and the brittleness is actually determined by the temperatures. The last equipment needed in measurement is called Instron 5966 testing machine. This equipment is used to carry out a static compression test. So other than the equipment needed in measurements, the most important material needed to conduct the whole measurement is called rice grain of the species Oryza sativa L.